Thank you very much. UMHD is really only 40 minutes away. I'm not seeing while you're leaving. It's a weekend deal. Just saying. Thank you for volunteering and participating this summer, by the way. And I enjoyed listening to you play. Hope you have a great semester. Blessings over that. You know, as I started thinking about the sermon, and you guys, I'm sorry, you're on the very front row. Okay, that's all right. So I can get to the end back here. So, my mom and dad, you just sit farther back. They're afraid I can approach them too. Sure will. The history of this church to me is so embedded, and you don't realize how much it really is embedded until you start thinking about the process, thinking how you grew up, and thinking about the things in your life that affect what you do and how you do. And today and tonight, by the way, who can tell me this? Okay, this little trivia here. What premiere show is happening tonight? What everybody's waiting for? What's happening tonight? 7 o'clock. Anybody know? Okay, what premier sporting event is taking place tonight between 6 and 8 o'clock? Anybody know? Anybody know? Great, you're going to be here tonight then, right? Nothing happened, nothing affecting your life. Okay, just making sure. What we're going to talk about today and tonight are the laws, are the rules. Not about the rules of Exodus and Leviticus, and not about the 10 Commandments. We're going to talk about just general rules. So what I really wanted to do, which I got here way too late, because I know once you're planted in that seat that you're in, it's kind of hard to get you to move. So what we're going to do is kind of pretend, okay? And I am going to pick on this side for 2 reasons. They're named Bob, both of them. So we're going to call this side the rule breakers, okay? Now, bear with me. So that means y'all have to come back tonight, the whole section. Okay, we're going to call you guys the rule followers. Because I do know several people on this side too, and this is what I think. Yeah, you might want to move. I started thinking about that, but even to the point, and going back to how this church is embedded or ingrained this into my head. Tommy called me a TV evangelist based on the way I dress, and you'll recognize this in him when it's Lord's Supper or something. He dresses in a suit on occasion. But what I couldn't get past, and truly this was not a dilemma, but as a challenge, looking in my closet last night preparing, and even today, because I went to my closet and I had on originally this morning, I had on khakis, and I was going to put on the long sleeve shirt and the tie, and I could not get past it. And I'll have to explain to some of you newer members of Timbercrest within the last 15, 20 years, but I couldn't get past the image of Mr. Basham in a suit and tie at work, and a suit and tie here every Sunday, greeting everybody coming in the door. I couldn't get past. So I went to my wife and said, I can't get past this. I think I need to wear a suit to Timbercrest today. And she goes, I think you should. But isn't that funny how that it's not so much a law, but it was a standard that I grew up with. I'm not saying you all have to wear a suit and ties here, but it was something that is very appropriate in the lesson we're talking about today. It's being a rule follower and a rule breaker. And I promise you, if anybody know me at length, or not even at length, if you just met me today, you'll figure out pretty quick, I am for the most part, this would be my section, okay? I would be the captain, I'd be the cheerleader of the rule breaking section, okay? That's just how I grew up. Not raised, that's how I grew up. I was trying to be called as a rule follower, and that didn't work. My brother took that role. The passage we're going to talk about today is in Luke 15. And this topic is lost at sea. You know, and Castaway's been on, and if you've seen any of those shipwreck, things about people being lost at sea, you see the turmoil they'll go through, but I changed the word sea. Okay, it's not sea as in S-E-A, is the ocean, the salt water. It's sea as in C-S-E-E, the vision, sea, lost at sea. And I know that you guys are all familiar with this whole chapter. And when I was in one of my New Testament classes, the professor said, you're going to remember me for one thing. It's called lost coin, lost sheep, lost boy. And that's kind of what we were talking about, what parables meant and what the message that Jesus was teaching, what each one of these parables meant. So this is ingrained in my head. But we're going to talk about not you guys today, okay? So when you come back tonight, that's called a something close. Okay, by the way, when you come back tonight, we're going to talk about y'all. Today we're going to talk about these guys. We're going to talk about rule followers, okay? Let me tell you where that starts in Luke 15. Head down to Luke 15:25. Let me tell you something I did also one time. I did a camp in Colorado on the western slopes, and it was called Empagre Valley. It was up by Grand Junction. And I went through this one night, and I read this whole chapter. But it was really unique what I asked them to do. And it was very humbling at the same time. I asked them to go ahead and insert their name. Everywhere it talked about the lost, the prodigal son, everywhere that said his name, go ahead and insert your name. And I tell you, it'll bring to light, it'll bring some meaning back to it, okay? So this is for the rule. Okay, if you're rule followers over here, you can listen too. But anyway, here's the rule followers. And y'all know the story, but here it started in 25. Meanwhile, while the older brother was in the field, when he came near the house, he heard music and he heard dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him, "What's going on?" And that servant said, "Hey, your brother has come." He replied, "Your father has killed the fatted calf because he has him back safe and sound." The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him, but he answered his father, "Look, all these years I've been slaving for you, never disobeying your orders, yet you never gave me in the young goats so I could celebrate with my friends. But when your son, the one who has squandered your property with prostitutes, coming home, you killed the fatted calf for him." "My son," the father said, "you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we have to celebrate and be glad because your brother who was dead is now alive again. He was lost, is now found." You'll see a problem there? Because this whole parable, even starting at the very first part of 15, it talks about the basis of it, the father rejoicing at the loss, or the lady lost the coin, or the shepherd lost the sheep. Is the rejoicing came in the found, came in the lost. And it even talks about they were once lost but now found. How much more God rejoices when a sinner repents. But why would this passage be inserted in that? Why would the rule follower be part of that parable? So I think it's interesting to think that, as a rule follower, we have a tendency to misconstrue possibly the reason we follow rules. And then we have to start thinking about some of the rules we imply and we implement at our own church level, right? And that we have just adopted as our own. But here, as a rule follower, here's what the brother was doing. Okay, so first of all, dynamically, what's wrong with the picture when the younger brother received the riches? In that time, what was the case? Who received the honors? The older, right? So already dynamically, at the very beginning of the story, it's whacked. Okay, the older brother's already irritated. So but he keeps his head to the plow. He goes out in the field. He hauls hay summer after summer. Raises cattle summer after summer. Tends to the sheep summer after summer in the heat. Doesn't complain. But the question is this. At that point, if you're on the outside looking in, and unfortunately my parents probably can relate to this conversation way too well. I was the prodigal child. Okay? I just took up and left and walked away for the most part. So, on the outside looking in, parents, family at the family reunion, the younger child, he's off in another town, squandering off the money. The older child is sitting there and he's slaving at the field and he's doing everything he's supposed to do. The parents are going, the family and friends go, "You were so lucky to have a son like that." Right? That's what we see. That's what we believe. "Oh, look, he's just so diligent. He's stuck with you. He's taking care of everything. He's right there with you. The thick and thin, that brother, that son's been here." On the outside, that's a great deal. From a humanistic point of view, that's an awesome, thing to have. That sense of accomplishment, that sense of ownership, that sense of responsibility. The obedience there is a really good thing. We think. So what's the problem? Why was the older son so mad? See, he had this problem. He was lost at sea. Because he said, "Look at all that I have done for you. Look at, I stuck around. I took care of it. I didn't squander your money. I wasn't like him. I followed the rules." So he's sitting there with this, he's so infuriated with the fact that he's been doing all these things right, and all of a sudden they're partying. He is so resentful of maybe not even the brother, but the actions of the father, of receiving the brother back. He's so resentful, he can't even bring himself to go in to the party. He's so selfish. He's so tied up, wallowing in self-pity, sort of like the younger son. But his focus is on what? The belief that he's entitled. The belief that he's actually earned some type of love. That rightfully he thinks all of it's his. What would have happened if the younger brother would have just changed the story a little bit? What the younger brother would have stayed home and everything would have been okay, and the time came when the father was dying and all this man's property was supposed to go to the older son. What would happen if a great famine hit their land and they lost absolutely everything? Would that son still have the same bitterness? I'd have to say yes. One thing that I was looking at, I got that. Okay. One thing I was looking at was, where is the, what's the golden rule? Who knows the golden rule? Where's that in the Bible? Actually, it is. It's in Leviticus 19. Now, here's the funny thing I thought of. Everybody knows that, right? Right? Treat us the way you want to be treated. I found something that showed you 19 ways to follow the golden rule. I started thinking about 19 ways to follow a rule. How do you have 19 ways to follow a rule? And it was talking about being empathetic, being this, being that. Let me find it real fast. Sorry, 18. 18 practical tips for living the golden rule. Then it goes through talking about practice empathy, practice compassion, how would you want to be treated, be friendly, be helpful, be courteous in traffic, listen to others, overcome prejudice, stop criticism, don't control others, be a child. Yeah, I'll explain that one later. I'm not going to. Send yourself reminders. Okay, it's getting close. Tie a string to your finger. It's getting closer. Post it on your wall or make it at a home page or on your website. Get closer. Rise above retaliation. Kind of falling away. Be the change. Notice how it makes you feel. Guess what the last one was? How to practice what God tells us to do. The very last one was say a prayer. No. And then it goes down, it doesn't mean pray to God, it means say a chant. So we got these 18 rules, how to follow the golden rule, and none of them talk about praying to God. The problem with the older brother was the entitlement aspect of his working relationship with his father. Y'all think that's prevalent in the church today? Was it prevalent in the church back then? Let's start in the Old Testament. Is this something that happened in the Old Testament? Just say yes, that works well. Happened in the New Testament. Did that in the New Testament churches? Did that happen? You just got through last week going through the different churches, right? In Revelation. Was it happening there? Yeah, absolutely. Is it happening now? I remember it. I looked earlier. Y'all remember these when older Timbercrest people, maybe your church growing up had it. Remember the gift when you put your tithes and offering in the little envelope? What did it ask you on there? Because it had check marks. Here it does too. It says, where do you want your money to go, which is a stewardship thing, which is great. But what did it ask you in those old envelopes? Did you bring your Bible? Did you attend Sunday school? Did you attend worship? How about this one? Daily Bible reading. You remember that one on there? It was an accountability. An accountability. But can it be that we can sometimes get caught up in the transactions of going to church instead of finding the real reason for going to church. What should have been the motive of that son? Honoring his father and working because he what? He wanted to because it was a byproduct of his what? Of his love for his father. There's a definition of worship that you guys need to gravitate to and adopt, I think, if you haven't already. I think you have. And here it is. Worship's definition is your devoted response to God's word. So that means how you play church should be a reflection on how you serve your God. How you address people in day-to-day transactions is how you believe how worthy your God is. That's what worship is, your devoted response. How do you respond to the way God loves you? And then the other question is, are you? You are responding. How does God call you to respond? So what's wrong with this older brother here, this rule follower, with this entitlement? Y'all think he was owed that? Was he owed those things? By the law of the land, yeah, he was. But what should have been his motivation? What should have been the driving factor? Should he have been happy that his brother blew everything and then returned home to receive it all over again, to receive another ring, to receive the fatted calf? What should the brother's response really be? I know humanistically what was, because it's what's in our heart too, for the most part. The lesson that I get from this is this older brother used his transaction, used his relationship with his father as a form of manipulation to get what he wanted. How many of y'all were driven on the road? And I didn't mean to actually read those list of things that said, traffic, because I really read them ahead of time because I was more concerned about the last one about prayer. But being how you drive in traffic. How many of y'all, this is a trick question for younger drivers, so hopefully you're 16, right? You driving yet? Okay. Here's one you can learn. There is no such thing as blinker fluid. Okay? All blinkers are supposed to work. Either if it doesn't work, you have a light out. Okay? And here's another rule. Just because you put a blinker on doesn't give you the right to change lanes. Do y'all see that entitlement driving around? And we're stopped, that word, on that little sign that's red, has STOP, doesn't mean slow till objects pass. Or screech tires on pavement. I mean, stop. There are rules, there's laws we need to obey that are for the benefit of who we are, right? But don't you see that entitlement attitude more and more growing up? I do. And my kids, there's a thing, if you ask my kids right now, we'll watch TV and something's happening on television, someone's breaking a rule, or someone's not following, or some child's being disrespectful to their parents or elder. I'll look at my children, parents do this to you too. I mean, I got in trouble for things other kids did just because I deserved it. My mom would say, "When's the last time you've been spanked?" Well, that's too long. She'd go ahead and answer for me. Spanked them. But if I ask my kids, I'll look at them and say, if you ever do that, remember those things? If you ever, that type of attitude, I promise you, each one of my kids will tell you this phrase. Yeah, we know, Dad, you're going to beat us with an inch of our life. Absolutely. There are consequences of some rules, but the entitlement aspect, the manipulation this older brother had, it truly revealed. I've heard that saying before too, that challenges don't cause cracks, they just reveal the cracks. Hard times don't cause them, it just reveals them, where the cracks in your character are. He felt like he was so shortchanged. I just want you to put yourself in, and trust me, it's easy to do, right? Just think about it. Put yourself in the shoes of this brother. He felt so shortchanged. This snowball thing just started happening. It started culminating this thing in his heart, and growing and festering, more than growing. Create this thing called bitterness. I told my oldest daughter, my youngest daughter, the situation that happened to me. I lived up in Arlington, and a friend of mine tried to commit suicide for the third time. And I found him. And I was so irritated and so bitter towards his actions in that, and just because it was all from a selfish motive. And there's dark seasons. I don't fully understand those suicide situations. I don't understand them, and I won't ever claim that I do. But I told my daughter, this situation happened where when the ambulance came and picked him up, they said, where do you want to take them? What do you want to do to them? And I said, what's the worst thing you can do? And they said, pump their stomach. I said, then do it. I was so fed up with the actions of this person. And this is what I told my daughter. The worst thing that happened out of that whole thing wasn't her situation mentally, but it was my character. And how resentful I was, and how calloused I became, how I lost the compassion. I lost the compassion for people that Christ embedded in me, how Christ created me. I'm forsaking the first love, as y'all talked about last week, right? Or you're going back through this church, forsaking the first love. I told the challenge with the older brother, the same thing here. Just festered so much that bitterness crept in. And the pride overtook the bitterness so to the point where he just abandoned. And there's nothing else about the story. It ends right there. About the rule follower. The one that we think in our eyes is the one who's done everything right. But it's what's in the heart, the action, the motives in the heart. A conversation came up in the Sunday school a while ago, and it was about the motive of giving inside of a church. And did they have, one of the churches was rich, but they manipulated the church by the money that they brought in. And the question is asked, does that still happen today? Well, absolutely it happens today. The moment you release that money and turn it over in that envelope and that offering plate is the last thing you need to worry about, where it goes and what it's used for. Because you did exactly what God told you to do, and that was be obedient. It's called stewardship. The older brother felt he owed a little more. He was owed more than just a stewardship. He wanted to control all of it. So in the aspect of, is that motivation, is that manipulation still in our church to this day? Absolutely. It's the mindset. It's where your heart is. What's going on inside? And it's so easy to work with your hands day in and day out, which, thank God I don't have to do that, like hauling hay and getting calluses and shoeing horses like my dad. My dad will never remove the calluses from his hands with the hard work. And not that I resent anything. I think I'm honored by the hard work and the ethic my dad put in my family. But the continual working of the hands creates calluses, right? To where you don't feel it. It happens in golf swings. It happens in casting, right? It happens in sewing. It happens in cooking. You receive calluses from continual work and labor. The same thing happened with this older brother's heart. He created a callus on his heart from his attitude, his entitlement, his bitterness, his resentfulness, his whole motivation for serving his father. Now, again, I'm going to ask you guys to come back tonight because there is a Paul Harvey to this, and y'all know what that means? The rest of the story, yeah, there is. Because everybody loves the bad boy, everybody loves the rule breaker, everybody wants to see what happens to him and wishes the worst thing does happen, really. They want to see what happens with the bad boy, with the rule breaker. But let me tell you something that wasn't shared in this parable, in this passage, and that is, y'all answer it for me, okay? Y'all think the father still loved the son, the older son? Yeah. You think the father's heart was aching because of his son's actions? You think the father desired that son to be part of that family? Okay. So does the Heavenly Father. Read something else to you here real fast. Real fast, maybe not real fast. I don't think anything of it is real fast. Now this is my Bible, by the way, because there's not a Bible that has print big enough so I can see it anymore, and the glasses are too thick for me to see it, so I'm sorry, just bear with me for a second. This is the way Jesus sees this. In Matthew 23:27, it says, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like a whitewashed tomb, which looks beautiful on the outside, but on the inside is full of bones of the dead and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness." That's exactly how the older son lived his life. He appeared one on the outside, but where with his true heart, his true intent was empty, pointless, and self-fulfilling. And here's the challenge. Again, we're going to talk about the rule breakers. Here's the challenge with the rule followers. They really have a tough time overcoming that. Overcoming the rules. Overcoming the fact there is an element of human nature that has to be incorporated into that. They have a tough time getting over that. And the worst thing about this is, like I told my younger daughter, is to have a really tough time understanding the word grace. And from that, their lack of understanding of the word grace causes them to not be able to receive it. And absolutely, if you can't receive it, you can't what? You can't show it. You can't give it. I'm working with a gentleman right now, one of his companies, and he is a very rule follower and very dogmatic, and you must, and you must, and you must. And the very first part of our relationship, I put my hand on his shoulder and I said, "You're going to understand one word before this is all said and done. It's called grace. Because everybody participating with this is not just like you. And you're going to have to understand that, or it will hurt you. Mentally and physically, it will hurt you." That's exactly what's taking place in the book here. So if you classify, I classified you, right, already. So however you classify yourself, whether you're a rule follower or a rule breaker, the primary thing you have to remember is there's a Heavenly Father who knows you already and knows you're one of the two, who loves you and desires you and wants you to take that aspect as He did the churches in the Revelation. He wanted them to recenter themselves and to put Him the main thing, keep the main thing the main thing. He wanted to be the center of their devotion, the center of their worship. He's asking you to do the same thing. As a church at Timbercrest, I grew up before houses were in some of these locations. We'd ride our dirt bikes and mainly bicycles, not motorcycles, because I would hurt myself, I'm sure. And we had friends that had them and I hurt myself on their bikes. Bicycles, we would make our own bicycles. We'd ride trails and all through here. And also we grew up with church, and across this courtyard right here was an education building. At the top of that education building was a big white steeple. One of the saddest days of my life was watching that steeple lay down on its side. It was being hauled off. It was falling apart. I know it needed to. But man, that steeple represented a given point in the community. Timbercrest, you're on the crested part of this whole community. God has delivered and had provided the building for you guys, and a heart for Him, and stewardship for Him to go out and share this church and share God's Word and invite people back to this location to hear what He has to say. But more so than that, He's called you out every day to do that. Look how you're serving. Look how you're giving. Look how you're participating in God's rules and God's laws. And why are you doing that? Are you doing it to gain an ownership? Because He already promised that through the birth, the walk, the death, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. He's already gave you ownership. You're an heir to the throne. You earn nothing, you lose nothing. So what's keeping you back? God didn't create this blood flow of mercy in this little pipeline, this little stream drizzle, right? It's a river, it's flowing. And only if the parable had changed. Only if the brother could have ended in a good way. You know, when stories, and you're watching a movie, and you think something good's going to come out of this movie, and you're waiting for the good ending, and you're waiting for that grand turnaround, and everybody's happy, and it doesn't happen in the movie, you walk out going, that was pointless. What in the world happened there? You want the good endings to happen. So here's two things. If you're still wondering how to classify yourself, if you're a rule breaker and you know you're a rule breaker, if you have an app on your phone, and one of your apps is not Candy Crush, by no stretch of imagination, ignore that. I wasn't doing that in your Sunday school class, by the way. If you have an app on there and it has Chapman's Bail Bonds as an app, you might be a rule breaker. Just saying. If you go to Six Flags, Walt Disney, some amusement park, and there's not a big line before you get on the ride, but you feel chosen and feel like you have to walk the path all the way, you actually can cut, and they're allowing you to cut, but you just can't seem to do that, you probably are a rule follower. Those are two indications, okay? As we close, as we wrap up, now remember the days we had, they call them invitations. Remember the days when they were called altar calls? I love those days. I've done those at camps before. And here's what it does. It gives no option. Your altar is right there in your heart. Your altar is either up here, your altar is wherever it is. But I promise you this, I know several things about my life that need to be changed, need to be corrected, need to be amended, need to be released back to God, besetting sins that I just keep having challenges with. But I know in the altar of my heart, on a daily basis, there's things I need to go ahead and release back to Him. And He's been working on me for about 6 months about releasing things in my life, and it's just difficult to walk that path. So as we close, as we wrap up our closing hymn, I didn't even read what it was. Invitation hymn 310. I want to have an altar call. I want you guys to be where you are. You can even come forward. That's fine. Start analyzing. Why do you do what you do? Who are you in the whole scheme of things as far as your relationship? Are you a rule follower, rule breaker? But truly, bottom line, what is your motive for doing what you're doing? What's your purpose for doing what you're doing? Heavenly Father, we come before you just thanking you so much for your continual love for us. You knew us before we were in the womb. You knew us before all of creation. You knew how we were going to be and what our personality is. And the cool thing is, God, that throughout your word, you never told any of your followers, oh, by the way, you need to change your personality, change your character. You did say, I want to be in control of that. I want to be on the throne. I need you off the throne. Lord, thank you for desiring to be Lord of our life. Thank you for desiring to be the King on the throne of our lives. I pray that we submit that. I pray that we look at the reasons why we do what we do. I say thank you for your love for me. Thank you for your Son, Jesus, who died on the cross and rose. And thank you for the one drop of blood that covered every sin that I possibly did have and will have. Help me to be submissive to you in all that I say and do. I pray that you're glorified in all we say and do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Number 310, as we sing.